Ha-eun blinked in shock, realizing her wrist was caught in a firm grip. Her eyes darted to the side and widened when she saw Lee Jun standing there. His jaw tight, his expression blazing with anger. The entire restaurant went silent. Lee Jun shoved her hand away and turned to Nina. His voice low but steady. "Are you okay?" He pulled out the chair beside him, his gaze softening as it landed on her. "Come, sit here." Nina's legs wobbled, her face still stung, and for a moment she couldn't move. All she could do was stare at him, her heart pounding from both shock and relief. Ha-eun's eyes widened as Lee Jun gently patted Nina's head, the simple gesture cutting deeper than any insult. Her whole body trembled with rage, her manicured nails digging into her palms. Even her friends exchanged stunned glances, their laughter from earlier swallowed by disbelief. Can the two of you explain to me what's going on here?" Ha-eun's voice cracked, sharp with anger but laced with something else, fear. Lee Jun turned slowly, meeting her glare with cool indifference. His back straightened, shoulders squared, as though he had been waiting for this confrontation. "Who is she to you?" Ha-eun demanded, her chin tilting up, as if daring him to give the wrong answer. Nina's breath caught in her throat, her fingers tightening around the edge of the chair. Finally, Lee Jun's lips curved, not into a smile, but into a line of quiet defiance. "My best friend," he said firmly. Gasps rippled through the room. Ha-eun's eyes darted from him to Nina, disbelief flashing across her face. Her lips parted, but no words came out. "How can you even call this thing your friend?" Haeun spat, her voice rising. "What if she steals your money?" "Shut up." Lee Jun's voice boomed through the restaurant, cutting her words like a blade. He stepped closer, his glare locking on her. "Yeah, that's right. You saw us leaving together that night, didn't you? No wonder you've been making her life hell. 6 in the morning to 10 at night, no shifts, no breaks. How could you be this inhumane?" Haeun gasped, her lips parting as if the floor had dropped beneath her. She hadn't seen him looking at her or even noticing her presence that day. Her eyes flicked to Nina, wide with sudden fear. But within seconds, that fear twisted into something darker. Her gaze hardened, narrowing on Nina with a fury that made Nina's stomach churn. "Interesting," Haeun hissed, her lips curling into a bitter smile. "So you're trying to paint me as the bad guy, huh? Looks like you don't like your job anymore. You're fired." Her voice thundered through the restaurant, making customers flinch. She snatched up her designer bag and spun on her heel, striding toward the exit. "Don't worry." Lee Jun's calm voice followed her, firm and unshaken. "She's leaving anyway." The words stopped Haeun mid-step. She froze, then slowly turned her head, only to see Lee Jun holding Nina's hand. Nina's eyes widened, tugging gently, trying to free herself, but Lee Jun didn't let go. His grip wasn't forceful, but protective, steady, a silent message that shook Haeun to her core. Her nostrils flared as she quickly faced forward again, her jaw tightening as she fought to suppress the storm of anger boiling inside. Without another word, she pushed the door open and stormed out of the restaurant. When Nina reached home, her knees buckled the moment she shut the door. She slid down against it, burying her face in her hands as tears poured out. Her chest heaved, every sob tearing from a place she couldn't hold together anymore. Lee Jun's words kept replaying in her head. The confession, the apology. Haeun was the woman he was arranged to marry, in just a week. And she had known all along that Nina was the one who pulled him from the accident when she saw her entering his car. That fueled her jealousy. And it was all because of him. He had admitted it himself and to Nina. His fault, his mess, his mistake. He was sorry. Nina pressed her palms against her swollen eyes, trying to breathe, but the weight of it all sat heavy on her chest. So that's why the workers suddenly changed. Why they looked at me like I didn't belong. She dragged herself to the dining table, her appetite gone, the untouched meal staring back at her like a stranger. She laid her head on her arms. Then, her phone buzzed across the table, the screen lighting up with his name. Lee Jun. Her hand hovered over it, trembling. She clenched her jaw, swallowed hard, and let it ring until the sound died. Nina sat curled up on her couch as lots of thoughts filled up in her mind. Losing her job felt like her whole world had collapsed, yet some small part of her whispered it was for the best. Distance was the only shield she had left between herself and Ha-eun. Still, her chest ached with a truth she didn't want to face. Deep down, she was already wrestling with the hardest decision of her life, leaving Lee Jun behind. She wasn't a homewrecker. She had seen the fire in Haeun's eyes, the fury that burned just from his touch on her hand. If Haeun could go this far now, what kind of storm would she unleash in the future? Her phone sat on the table, vibrating again and again. The screen showed his name. She had already ignored 100 missed calls, the numbers blurring together like a wound she couldn't stop pressing. Nina dragged herself up and glanced at the small flyer she had picked up earlier. Vacancy notice. A local restaurant. Not high-end like Haeun's, nothing glamorous, but a chance to start again. A chance to breathe without looking over her shoulder. She clutched the paper in her hand, whispering to herself, "Maybe this is the only way." Nina walked down the busy street, the flyer for the restaurant interview folded tightly in her hand. She couldn't shake the hollowness inside her. Ignoring Lee Jun's calls felt like ripping out a piece of herself. Was she protecting him or just running away? The guilt pressed heavy on her chest. A strange ripple of whispers reached her ears. People glanced at her, some openly pointing from her phone to her face as they passed. She tried to ignore that, but each time and place she passed they were pointing at her while some were even laughing. Confusion prickled her skin. Frowning, she unlocked her phone to—
Hi viewers! Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more captivating folktales and unforgettable stories.
See what was that. And there it was. Headline: The Korean billionaire spotted holding hands with a foreigner inside his future wife's restaurant. Her breath caught. Her mouth fell open in shock, the world around her blurring as her phone slipped from her trembling hands, but it never hit the ground. A hand shot out steady and sure, catching it just in time. Heart hammering, Nina's eyes lifted, and there he was, Lee Jun. A black cap shaded part of his face, but his presence was unmistakable. His gaze locked onto hers, as though the chaos of the world outside didn't matter except her. He handed the phone back to her, his fingers brushing hers. Nina's throat tightened, and she swallowed hard. Shock rooted her in place, but instinct urged her to walk away. She took a step, but Lee Jun caught her hand, pulling her gently but firmly until he stood squarely in front of her. "Why haven't you been picking up my calls?" His voice was low, almost desperate. Nina lowered her eyes, refusing to answer. Too many people were watching, whispering, their stares burning into her skin. Lee Jun noticed too. His jaw tightened and without warning, he guided her into a quiet corner, his arm shooting out to brace against the wall beside her, trapping her there, not forcefully, but in a way that told her he wouldn't let her slip away. "I'm sorry," he said, his words tumbling out fast, breathless. "I'll apologize 1,000 times if I have to. But please, don't think of breaking our friendship. If it means nothing to you, then know this. It means everything to me." Nina's lips trembled. "Are you serious right now? Your mother and Haeun must be fuming, and now we're everywhere in the news." Her voice cracked, frustration and fear lacing each word. Lee Jun leaned closer, his eyes searching hers. "So I'm right then. It's because of Haeun you stopped picking up my calls." Nina let out a long, heavy sigh. "You're getting married next week. Please, don't think of seeing me again. I have a job interview and I don't want to be late." Her voice wavered, but her steps didn't. She felt bad for saying that, but her face didn't show it. She turned away before he could respond. Lee Jun reached out, but his hand caught only air as she walked off. Frustration burned through him. He slammed his foot against the wall, dragging both hands through his hair as his chest rose and fell in ragged breaths. Lee Jun stormed into his family's company building. His palm crashed against the glass door as he shoved it open, the echo sharp in the quiet lobby. His chest was still heaving when he stepped into the sitting room. There, on the couch, sat Heian, her parents and his mother, sipping tea with their faces intense. Lee Jun froze, shock flickering across his face. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to him. He swallowed hard, forcing himself to calm down, but his fists clenched tightly at his sides. His mother rose from her seat, fury written all over her face. She marched straight to him and, without hesitation, slapped him hard across the cheek. The sound echoed through the room. Lee Jun didn't flinch, but his eyes burned red, anger swelling beneath his silence. She shoved her phone in his face, the glowing headline glaring back at him. "It looks like you no longer want to inherit your father's company. What is this disgrace? That girl. Do you want the entire nation to laugh at us?" she screamed, her voice trembling with rage. Lee Jun's jaw tightened, his gaze drifting past her. His eyes found Heian, and in that instant he knew. This was her doing. He was sure that one of her friends recorded that video and uploaded it. One video was all it took to blow everything up. But he said nothing. His mother's words cut deeper than the slap. She always wielded the inheritance like a chain, reminding him that his dream, leading the Chable group, was hers to give or take away. Heian rose slowly, a pitiful expression pasted on her face. She stepped toward his mother, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder as if to soothe her. "Auntie, please don't be upset. Appa must have just made a mistake. Don't be too hard on him." Her voice was soft as her eyes flicked to Lee Jun. "I understand your anger, mother, but it's not what you think. Nina is just a friend. His best friend and nothing more." "Never," his mother snapped, her voice thunderous. "Never will you shame this family by calling that kind of person your friend. Not on my watch. You will not drag our name into the mud." From the corner of his eye, Lee Jun caught the faint curl of Heian's lips. A victorious smile. But the moment his mother's head turned, she quickly masked it with a pitiful, mournful expression. "Mother, please calm down," Heian said softly, slipping closer to Lee Jun. "Appa must have been careless, that's all. We're already working to have the articles removed." She reached for his hand, her fingers curling around it like chains. He scoffed bitterly, yanking slightly, but her grip only tightened. The disgust in his eyes was impossible to hide. Across the room, Heian's mother shook her head and let out a long sigh, her teacup clinking softly against the saucer. "Very embarrassing," she murmured. "How is anyone supposed to interpret this? Reckless behavior so close to your marriage." She set her cup down with deliberate calm and looked at Lee Jun. "Now sit down. Let's discuss the wedding details." Heian smiled sweetly, about to release his hand so they could take their seats, but she froze when his voice cut through the silence, cold and sharp. "I'm no longer interested in this stupid marriage." All of them gasped as his mother turned to his side immediately. Haun looked at him as her hand slipped away from him. Did you just call the marriage stupid?" his mother demanded, her voice trembling with both shock and rage as she glared into her son's eyes. Lee Jun didn't flinch. He held her gaze, his voice steady. "I don't care what you call it. But, mother, if you can't see that I've been happy for the first time in my miserable life since the day that woman saved my life, then maybe you've never really cared for me." The room went silent. Heian's mother jolted to her feet, pointing a trembling finger at him. "So you would throw away everything for that foreigner? You would choose her over your marriage, over your future?" Before he could answer, his mother scoffed bitterly. "Of course he won't. He knows better than to lose the inheritance. That company is his blood. He won't let it go." Lee Jun's lips curved into a bitter smile. He straightened, his voice cutting through the room like a blade. "I don't care. You can keep your inheritance. I don't want it anymore." Gasps filled the air. His mother's face went pale. Heian staggered a step back as she panicked. Without another word, Lee Jun turned sharply and stormed out, slamming the heavy doors behind him. The echo rang through the room like a thunderclap. Heian's voice cracked in desperation. "Mother, what are we going to do? What has come over him? What has that girl done to him? If we don't act fast, she will take him away from us completely." His mother's hands trembled as she sank slowly onto the couch, her pride and control slipping for the first time. "He will come back, let's not worry," she whispered bitterly. "That inheritance his life." Nina sat curled on her couch, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. She wanted to cry, to let every tear fall, but she held it in. She was rejected from the interview because of the news circulating everywhere. How could she get a job when her face was plastered across headlines as the foreigner ruining a Chable marriage? She wasn't even speaking to the one person who always calmed her down. All she could do was hope, pray, that Lee Jun was safe wherever he was. The sudden chime of her doorbell jolted her from her thoughts. Heart pounding, she rose and walked toward the door. Peeking at the camera feed, she frowned. The lens was covered. Who would cover it? She whispered under her breath, hesitating. Against her better judgment, she slowly unlocked the door. When it swung open, her breath caught in her throat. Lee Jun stood there, clutching a luggage in his hand. His face pale. His eyes dim with exhaustion and sadness. "Am I welcome?" he asked softly, his voice almost breaking. Nina froze, torn between slamming the door and pulling him inside. Her lips parted, but no words came out. "Is everything okay?" she finally managed, her voice trembling. He exhaled shakily, his shoulders sagging under a weight he didn't seem strong enough to carry anymore. "No," he admitted at last. "Nothing is okay anymore. If you really want to know," Lee Jun said, his voice low, "why don't you let me come inside?" Nina's throat tightened. She swallowed hard at the seriousness in his eyes before finally stepping aside. He walked in quietly, the box still in his hands, and she closed the door behind him. For a long moment, he just stood there in her small living room, looking oddly out of place in his expensive clothes yet strangely vulnerable. Trying to ease the awkwardness, Nina slipped into the kitchen and returned with a cup of coffee. She offered it to him, but he didn't move, still rooted to the spot. "Why are you still standing?" she asked, confused. "You haven't given me permission to sit," he said softly, eyes locked on hers. Her heart thudded. He wasn't joking, he really meant it. As if her acceptance of him mattered more than anything else right now. She studied his face for a second, then gave a small gesture toward the couch. He exhaled and finally sat down, placing the box carefully on the table as though it carried something fragile. "Was it your mum?" Nina asked hesitantly, her voice almost a whisper. "It was my choice," Lee Jun said firmly, his eyes never leaving hers. He took a deep breath and continued. "I cancelled the marriage. I gave up the inheritance. All of it. For my happiness." Nina's eyes widened. Her chest rose and fell quickly as she shook her head, almost in disbelief. You can't do this," she whispered, then her voice grew stronger. She pushed herself up from the couch, pacing with trembling steps. "It doesn't make any sense, Lee Jun. You have to go back. You can't disappoint your whole family. Remember, the whole world is watching." "I don't care." His voice thundered, cutting through her words. Her head snapped toward him. He had risen to his feet too, his jaw clenched, his hands fisted at his sides. "I don't care," he repeated, his voice breaking this time, softer but burning with conviction. He stepped closer, his eyes glistening as he leaned toward her. "Because I will do anything to be with you." Nina's heart slammed against her ribs, sinking and rising at the same time, as if it had rushed straight into her throat. Her lips parted, but no words came out. I love you," Lee Jun said, his voice weak, almost trembling. Nina's eyes fluttered rapidly, her fingers twitching at her sides. She didn't know how to breathe, much less respond. "Ever since you came into my life," he continued, his voice low but steady, "you quenched the darkness I carried inside me. The words tumbled out as though they had been locked in his chest. Her throat tightened. "Please leave," she whispered, forcing herself to sound cold though her voice cracked. "If that's what you came here for, nothing can work between us." Lee Jun reached forward and clasped both her hands in his grip warm and desperate. "Then look at me," he said, his eyes burning into hers, "and tell me you don't love me too." Her breath caught. That question was the hardest she had ever been asked. Deep down, she couldn't deny the truth that she has feelings for him. The problem wasn't her feelings. It was the storm between them. She faltered, her lips trembling as the words died in her throat. Before she could finish, Lee Jun closed the space between them and pressed his mouth against hers. Her eyes widened as her hands pressed weakly against his chest, trying to push him away. But the strength to resist slipped through her fingers. Her body softened against him. The kiss deepened, raw and hungry, pulling her under. And though she knew she should stop, she gave in, her lips moving with his, until the world around them disappeared, leaving only the heat of their kiss. His mother tried reaching him, but he refused to pick her calls to the extent that he changed his phone and his call line so that no one would disturb him. His mother tried reaching him countless times, but Lee Jun ignored every call. In the end, he changed his phone and number altogether, cutting off her reach completely. True to his promise, he poured his energy into Nina's dreams. Even when she tried refusing, saying she didn't want to bother him, he went ahead and arranged everything, until she finally signed a contract with one of the biggest modeling agencies in Seoul. From her very first shoot, the cameras loved her. Her tall, graceful frame, the smooth glow of her rich brown skin, the way every outfit seemed to fall perfectly against her figure. She stood out like no one else. Agencies and brands flocked to her, fascinated by her uniqueness. Her name spread quickly, climbing faster than even Nina could believe. And though Haun tried pulling strings behind the scenes, whispering to managers, spreading doubts that Nina didn't belong in Korea's fashion world, her efforts fell flat. Every setback only seemed to push Nina higher, until her popularity began to rise even faster than Haun's. The girl who once served tables now walked runways, her face gracing magazines, her name echoing in places she had only dreamed of. Lee Jun called a press conference as the cameras flashed around him. He announced the cancellation of his arranged marriage with Haun, then declared publicly that his heart belonged to someone else, one of the brightest rising stars in Korea's modeling world, Nina Dobrev. The news exploded. Headlines flooded every outlet, social media boiled with debates. Some praised him for his courage, others spat harsh words at him for choosing Nina. But Lee Jun didn't care. For the first time in his life, he chose happiness on his own terms. At Nina's celebration party for her success in the agency, he dropped to one knee in front of a stunned crowd. The cameras caught the moment as he opened the velvet box. "Marry me," he whispered, the world holding its breath. Tears filled Nina's eyes as she nodded. Applause roared. The news spread like wildfire. Nina, once a restaurant worker, was now fiancée to one of Korea's most powerful heirs. But success always came with shadows. During one of her biggest runway shows, Nina stepped onto the stage in a breathtaking gown. The lights glittered, the crowd hushed. She walked gracefully, but suddenly her ankle wobbled, the heel of her shoe snapped. Her chest tightened as she fought to steady herself, posing as though nothing happened. Just as she exhaled in relief, she felt the sharp tear of fabric along her hip. The gown split at the side. Gasps erupted across the audience. Cameras clicked mercilessly. Nina's face flushed crimson as she clutched the torn dress and hurried backstage, tears brimming. Lee Jun stormed into the agency, his fury cold and cutting. "How could this happen? You said everything was fine," he snapped at the staff. The agency swore the outfit and shoes had been flawless before she stepped out. Suspicion clouded the room. At his demand, they pulled up the CCTV footage. The truth unraveled in seconds. On the screen, a slim figure crouched by the costume rack, fingers snapping the heel of the shoe, scissors slicing the seam of the dress. Image froze. The woman turned toward the camera, her face clear. The scandal spread like wildfire. Holland's company was charged with bribing the modeling agency. Her arrest broadcasted across every network. In a desperate attempt to save herself, she revealed the unthinkable, that Lee Jun's mother had been involved all along. The revelation shook the city, and soon his mother was also taken into custody for questioning. Days later, when the dust began to settle, Lee Jun's mother stood before her son, no longer the powerful, untouchable woman the world knew, but a mother stripped bare. Her eyes glistened with tears as her voice broke. "Forgive me, June. I only did all of this because I didn't know how else to keep you close after your father's death when you were a kid. I was wrong. I'm sorry." Then she turned to Nina, bowing her head deeply. "And to you. I owe the biggest apology. I should have protected you, not hurt you. Please forgive me." Nina's throat tightened, but she managed a gentle smile. "I hold nothing against you, ma'am. I understand. You did it to protect your son as any mother would. But he's a grown man now. That's the part you failed to see." Silence hung for a moment before his mother nodded slowly, her tears spilling. "You're right," she whispered. "And because of that, I will bless you both. May your marriage be stronger than my mistakes." On the day of the wedding, joy overflowed. Family, friends, and well-wishers filled the hall with laughter. Nina, radiant in white, walked down the aisle with grace, her eyes fixed on Lee Jun. He stood waiting, his smile wide, his gaze filled with nothing but love. When they exchanged vows, the world seemed to pause. Their kiss sealed not just their union, but their victory over every storm that had tried to tear them apart. Everyone rejoiced, clapping and cheering with smiles lighting up their faces. Because in the end, love knows no boundaries, no limits. It sees no status, only hearts that choose each other.